Betrayed by my own sister's lies, my fiance called off our engagement over a fake pregnancy claim, unaware I had been silently supporting her college and our home. Then I walked away and everything changed. You know that feeling when your entire world just shatters into a million pieces? Mine did violently, just minutes before my own wedding rehearsal dinner. Everything I'd painstakingly built, the future I so carefully envisioned, all detonated because of a single, sickening lie. A fake pregnancy report from my own sister, Stephanie. What the hell happened next? Oh, you have to hear this. I'm Scarlett, 30 years old, and that night, the last tranquil breath before the chaos, I held a terrible secret burning behind my eyes. I watched her, my sister, preparing her grand performance. The moment she launched into her theatrical monologue, her voice dripping with this fabricated fragility, announcing severe pregnancy complications, all designed to ruthlessly seize my spotlight by the way I struck. The quiet revelation that I knew the truth landed like a physical blow. Her smug, triumphant grin, a mask she perfected over years of manipulation, crumbled instantly. It was replaced by a raw, naked terror when I uttered two chilling words. Financial control. The collective gasp from our family, this absolute symphony of bewildered shock, resonated through the Belmont's elegant dining room as I meticulously, deliberately, laid bare years of concealed truths, exposing myself as the silent, shadowy architect funding Stephanie's impossibly lavish existence. That single, harrowing night ripped through the very fabric of our family dynamic. It didn't just expose. It cauterized a festering wound of lies, of blatant, unapologetic favoritism, and of buried resentments so profound, so long-standing, that none of us were remotely prepared to face their full, devastating force. Their faces, I swear, are seared into my memory, an indelible tableau of wide-eyed shock, profound betrayal, and utter, disbelieving bewilderment. From the outside, to any casual observer, Stephanie and I shared what looked like a typical, even idyllic sisterhood. But beneath that perfect veneer, a pervasive, insidious current of profound injustice flowed, shaping and deforming our entire relationship. Stephanie, years my junior, was perpetually enshrined from infancy as the family's darling, the adored baby. That privileged status clung to her, thick and suffocating, long into our adulthood. My parents, trapped within their own self-serving narrative, remained stubbornly, tragically oblivious to how their overt, glaring favoritism systematically corroded our bond, meticulously chipping away at my self-esteem throughout my most formative years. I was, by default, the archetypal elder sibling, dependable, driven, the tireless achiever. Chores, done without a single prompt. Grades, immaculately perfect. Every extracurricular activity I could possibly join was embraced with a fierce, almost desperate dedication. Stephanie, on the other hand, existed in a gilded cage of parental indulgence. Her childish tantrums over a messy room would magically result in its swift tidying by our parents. A failed test. The teacher, naturally, was always at fault, never Stephanie's lack of effort. The pattern was brutally, achingly clear. My accolades were always hard-won, meticulously earned through relentless, often solitary effort. Stephanie, in stark contrast, was showered with boundless adoration simply for existing, for being. Scarlett, you're the older sister. You need to set an example. My mother would intone, a dismissive, cutting refrain whenever I dared to voice the gnawing, suffocating unfairness that permeated our home. This became the insidious, ever-present soundtrack of my youth, a constant, debilitating echo that my emotional landscape, my very feelings, were perpetually secondary to Stephanie's serene, pampered existence. The injustice burned, a quiet, internal fire. Undeterred by their profound emotional neglect, perhaps even fueled by it, honestly, my academic trajectory soared. A full scholarship, hard-earned and fiercely defended, propelled me to an Ivy League institution, where I devoured the complex worlds of computer science and business, driven by a need to prove my worth beyond my family's skewed perceptions. My parents, ever present but rarely truly seeing me, graced my graduation, yet their attention fixated, almost immediately, on Stephanie's relatively minor college application woes, effortlessly eclipsing my monumental achievement, minimizing it to a mere footnote in their relentless narrative of Stephanie's struggles. Post-graduation, I plunged headfirst into a nascent tech startup. We're talking years of grueling, soul-crushing 80-hour work weeks, nights spent beneath my desk, sometimes living on ramen noodles just to conserve every precious penny. It was a crucible, forging resilience, but also exacting a heavy toll on my personal life. The sacrifice, the sheer exhaustion, eventually paid off. By 26, I was Chief Technology Officer, and by 28, a multimillionaire after our company's acquisition. I was finally free to retire if I chose. Can you imagine? Then, a cruel, almost poetic twist of fate. My financial zenith, the pinnacle of my independent success, mirrored my parents' precipitous, agonizing decline. Their 2-decade-old retail store, once a modest but steady success, crumbled under a toxic combination of poor business choices, an unforgiving economic downturn, and the relentless onslaught of corporate giants. They were too proud, too mired in their own shame to confess. My father, particularly, would never admit defeat. The truth erupted when my mother's tearful, desperate phone call reached me, her voice trembling as she confessed they couldn't make their mortgage payment. The revelation hit me with a sickening force. These were the same individuals who had always projected an image of financial savvy, who had lectured me, incessantly, about responsibility while indulging Stephanie's every fleeting whim, however costly. That harrowing night, a silent, weighty decree sealed our family's future, unbeknownst to them. I would provide, but in shadow, cloaked in secrecy. Their pride, fragile and immense, had to be protected at all costs. More critically, Stephanie's corrosive, deeply ingrained jealousy, already a toxic undercurrent whenever anything good happened in my life, must never discover my newfound wealth. The thought of her reaction, her resentment, was a visceral fear. Thanksgiving that year, a seemingly innocuous occasion to introduce my wonderful boyfriend, Mark, to my family, proved a stark, chilling revelation of Stephanie's true nature. Mark, a gifted architect with his own flourishing firm, embodied kindness, intellect, and unwavering respect for me, qualities I cherished. The instant Stephanie met him, a subtle yet deeply unsettling metamorphosis occurred. Her laughter gained a performative, almost shrill edge. Her fingers lingered on his arm, too often, too long, too intimately during conversation. Her single status became an insistent, desperate refrain, punctuating dinner conversation with a hurried, almost pleading cadence. "Your sister seems nice," Mark remarked later, utterly oblivious to her predatory flirtation, his kind eyes seeing only surface pleasantries. That's Mark, I thought, a pang of protectiveness mixed with frustration, always seeing the best. She can be, I managed, my response deliberately vague, unwilling to taint his innocent perception with my gnawing, tangled emotions, my gut churning with unease. The clandestine financial scaffolding that would later become the explosive core of our family's unraveling was already firmly, meticulously in place. Veiled behind a labyrinth of shell companies and intricate trusts, carefully constructed legal entities, I quietly bore the crushing weight of my parents' entire existence, their mortgage payments, their car payments, their health insurance, their spiraling credit card debts. For Stephanie, I orchestrated a scholarship, a completely fabricated fund, covering her college tuition, her books, and her impossibly luxurious campus apartment. No one, not a single one of them, suspected my hand in their sudden, miraculous solvency. My parents, blinded by their relief, attributed their financial reprieve to benevolent, government-backed assistance programs, to their own newfound financial savvy, or to sheer blind luck. Stephanie, basking in her undeserved prosperity, believed her scholarship came from an anonymous alumni foundation, a testament to her unrecognized potential. My motives were complex, a Gordian knot of love, resentment, and self-preservation. To aid them without further warping our already fragile dynamic, to avoid the humiliating reality of becoming the family's perpetual ATM, and crucially, to escape the searing, familiar sting of my parents' effusive praise for Stephanie's fortune, while my own monumental achievements were hard-won, meticulously earned, and consistently unacknowledged. In hindsight, with the searing clarity of the present, I recognize I was unwittingly nurturing a toxic codependency, not fostering genuine growth. Yet then, in that moment, it felt like a compassionate shield, a necessary sacrifice, preserving their brittle dignity while securing their fundamental comfort. I remained tragically, dangerously unaware that my carefully constructed secrecy would inevitably clash, violently, with Stephanie's venomous, insatiable envy, brewing a tempest destined to rip our family apart from its very foundations. Our tech company's acquisition wasn't merely successful, it was a kind of seismic, industry-shaking event that reverberates through financial headlines and industry publications for months. Our small, dedicated team, armed with an ingenious, proprietary algorithm for data processing, had created something so innovative, so indispensable, that a major tech behemoth found it utterly irresistible. When the dust settled, when the final numbers were tallied and the ink dried, I found myself commanding a net worth exceeding $12 million before my 30th birthday, finally free to retire from the relentless grind if I chose. I diversified some of the money into conservative investments, channeled significant funds to causes I deeply cared about, purchased a comfortable yet understated house, nothing extravagant, nothing flashy, and earmarked a substantial, secret portion for my family's veiled needs. My wealth was cloaked, not flaunted. I still drove the same reliable Honda I'd had for years. My lifestyle, unassuming and unflashy, remained well below my means. Few people in my life knew the true extent of my financial situation, which was exactly how I wanted it, a protective shell around my hard-won success. When I discovered the true extent of my parents' business failure, the raw, brutal reality shocked me to my core. They were 3 months behind on their mortgage, their credit cards maxed out to breaking point, and they had taken out predatory, high-interest loans in a desperate, futile attempt to keep their sinking store afloat. The burden of this secret knowledge was overwhelming, a suffocating weight on my shoulders. These were the very people who had always portrayed themselves as financially savvy, who had lectured me, incessantly, about responsibility and thrift while indulging Stephanie's every fleeting whim, however costly. "Miss Preston, are you absolutely certain you want to structure things this way?" My astute financial advisor, Thomas, had probed, his brow furrowed with concern, sensing the labyrinthine complexities I was weaving. Family financial entanglements can get complicated, quickly and painfully. "I'm sure," I insisted, my resolve ironclad, my voice firm despite the tremor in my soul. "They absolutely cannot know it's coming from me." Thomas, a master of his craft, meticulously constructed several legal entities that would serve as impenetrable buffers between my money and my unsuspecting family. We established a trust that appeared to be from a distant, benevolent relative, a fake scholarship fund for Stephanie, and a business grant program that, by sheer coincidence, would inevitably select my parents for assistance. The paperwork was flawless, meticulously legitimate, but the true sources of funding were all, solely me. Within weeks, a wave of unsolicited good fortune washed over them, seemingly out of nowhere. My parents received a formal letter informing them they'd been approved for a special refinancing program that would miraculously reduce their mortgage payment by a staggering 60%. Another letter arrived, offering a substantial business stabilization grant, saving their store from the brink. Stephanie, in turn, received official notice that an anonymous donor had selected her for a full-ride scholarship that included tuition, housing, and a lavish monthly stipend, more than enough for her designer tastes. The change in their lives was immediate and dramatically visible. My parents stopped looking stressed, their faces visibly relaxing at family dinners. Stephanie, with newfound freedom, moved from her cramped, unglamorous dorm room to a sprawling, luxury apartment near campus, complete with a doorman and city views. Their boundless gratitude was directed, always at faceless institutions, at lucky circumstances, at the benevolence of strangers, never once at me. For a while, this elaborate arrangement seemed perfect, a harmonious, if deceptive, equilibrium. I could help my family without irrevocably changing our already fractured relationship dynamic, without becoming the resentful ATM. But beneath the surface, beneath the veneer of manufactured harmony, invisible cracks soon began to spread, slowly, inexorably. Despite having her education, her housing, and her entire living expenses fully covered, Stephanie's academic resolve, never robust to begin with, evaporated entirely. She began dropping classes with alarming regularity. By her junior year, she was barely clinging to part-time enrollment, fabricating elaborate tales of focusing on her major courses for our unsuspecting parents. I, the silent benefactor, received the unvarnished truth directly from the university's enrollment reports sent to me as the scholarship provider. More concerning was her escalating, destructive pattern with relationships and jobs. She'd date someone for a few months, inevitably create dramatic scenes, orchestrate a messy breakup, and then spend lavishly on designer clothes, spa treatments, and lavish trips to heal her broken heart, all courtesy of my scholarship stipend. She'd get hired somewhere, work for a few weeks, invariably clash with management, quit in a huff, or, more often, get fired, and then take months to find herself in another position, all while effortlessly maintaining her luxury lifestyle thanks to the endless stream of funds I provided. When Stephanie maxed out her first credit card at 21, racking up thousands in debt for designer handbags and extravagant parties, I received a desperate, tearful call from my mother. "Scarlett, I hate to ask, but your sister is in a bit of trouble financially. We helped as much as we could, but with the store still recovering, I pretended to contribute a small, manageable amount, feigning a shared sacrifice, while secretly, through my intricate financial network, paying off the entire exorbitant card. This pattern repeated itself several times over the next few years, each instance larger, each debt more astronomical than the last, deepening my resentment while reinforcing their dependence. When Mark, after 2 beautiful, honest years of dating, proposed to me, I was ecstatic, my heart overflowing with a pure, unadulterated joy I rarely allowed myself. We planned a wedding for the following spring. Nothing ostentatious, nothing over the top, but beautiful, meaningful, and deeply personal. My parents, ever eager to maintain appearances, insisted on contributing, so I arranged for them to receive an unexpected insurance reimbursement that they could then use for wedding expenses, effectively allowing them to pay with my money while maintaining their fragile pride, perpetuating the carefully constructed charade. As the wedding planning progressed, a process that should have been one of the happiest times of my life, Stephanie's behavior became increasingly erratic, increasingly malevolent. As my maid of honor, she was intimately involved in many aspects of the planning. A position of trust she seemed determined to sabotage at every turn. Appointments were mysteriously rescheduled without my knowledge, leaving me stranded and embarrassed. Deposits for vendors went missing, inexplicably vanished. Vendor communications were accidentally deleted from her phone, just poof, gone. I tried desperately to attribute these incidents to Stephanie's general disorganization, to her notorious financial irresponsibility, but a darker, more sinister pattern was emerging, one I could no longer, in good conscience, ignore. One night, while meticulously reviewing my financial monitoring systems, a habit born of prudence and deep-seated paranoia, I noticed unusual withdrawals from Stephanie's account. She had visited an urgent care clinic and made several significant purchases at a medical supply store. Around the exact same time, a red flag flashed across my screen. I found irrefutable evidence she'd been meticulously researching pregnancy symptoms, complex medical terminology, and most chillingly, how to create utterly convincing fake medical documents. A cold, suffocating sense of dread washed over me, a premonition of something truly awful. I immediately increased the monitoring on her accounts and communications, justifying the invasion of privacy with my growing, terrifying concern for my wedding, for my future, for us. What I discovered next, hidden deep within her digital footprint, was worse than anything I could have possibly imagined. Stephanie wasn't just casually jealous of my wedding. She was actively, maliciously, plotting to ruin it, to spectacularly destroy my happiness. Wedding planning should have been a symphony of joy, a celebration of love. Instead, Stephanie managed to transform it into a minefield of stress, doubt, and escalating anxiety. As my maid of honor, she possessed unfettered access to every single aspect of the wedding, a position of immense trust that, horrifyingly, gave her ample opportunity for her calculated sabotage. The first unmistakable red flag appeared 3 months before the wedding, a seemingly minor incident that, in hindsight, was a chilling prelude to the coming storm. I arrived at the florist for a crucial consultation, only to be told my appointment had been mysteriously rescheduled for the following week. Stephanie, they informed me, had called, impersonating my assistant, and changed it without bothering to tell me. When confronted, she feigned innocence with a practiced, weary sigh. "Oh, Scarlett, I thought I told you. I must have forgotten to text you after they called me. Wedding brain, right?" She laughed, a light, carefree sound that didn't quite reach her eyes. Something in their cold, calculating depths didn't match her easy explanation. A week later, our dream venue called in a panic because they hadn't received the deposit to secure our highly sought-after date. I distinctly remembered handing Stephanie a check to deliver during her lunch break, as the venue was conveniently near her apartment. The check, I later confirmed, had been cashed, but somehow the money had never materialized at the venue. Stephanie, ever the master manipulator, claimed there must have been a mix-up at their office and, with an air of responsible concern, offered to handle it. I later discovered, through my meticulous financial tracking, that she had deposited the check directly into her own account and used my money to make a hefty down payment on a brand-new, luxury car. "It was just a timing issue with my account, Scarlett," she explained, utterly unfazed, when I confronted her with the damning bank records. "I was going to transfer the money to them this week, honestly. Just a small delay." Naively, foolishly, I chose to believe her, writing it off as Stephanie's typical financial irresponsibility rather than outright malice. Looking back, I realized I was willfully, tragically blind, desperate to preserve a narrative of sisterly affection that simply didn't exist. The engagement party provided even more undeniable evidence of Stephanie's true, venomous intentions. Mark's brother, James, a gentle, unassuming man, pulled me aside during the celebration, his face etched with discomfort. "I don't want to cause drama, Scarlett," he said, clearly pained, "but I think you should know your sister has been texting Mark pretty frequently. He mentioned she keeps asking him to meet for coffee to discuss wedding surprises for you. Mark, bless his innocent heart, confirmed this when I asked him privately, showing me the increasingly flirtatious, overtly suggestive messages from Stephanie that he had been politely, awkwardly deflecting. He hadn't mentioned them, he explained, because he genuinely hadn't wanted to create tension between us, to upset my happiness. "I thought she was just being friendly," he said, looking genuinely troubled, his brows furrowed with concern. "Should I be worried?" "No," I assured him, though worry, cold and sharp, was beginning to gnaw relentlessly at me. "I'll handle Stephanie." When I confronted her about the deluge of inappropriate messages, she burst into a torrent of theatrical tears, claiming, with trembling lips and wet eyes, that she was just trying to make sure Mark was good enough for me, that she was protecting my big sister. Her performance was convincing, almost heartbreaking, a masterclass in feigned sincerity. I almost believed her, almost succumbed to her charade, until I noticed her subtly checking her reflection in a nearby mirror, meticulously gauging how she looked while crying, ensuring her distress was perfectly picturesque. The mask slipped. Around this time, Stephanie began dropping increasingly frequent hints about mysterious doctor appointments and vague, unsettling health concerns. At first, she was coy about the details, scattering hints like breadcrumbs for the family to eagerly follow. "I don't want to worry anyone," she'd say, her voice laced with manufactured fragility at family dinner, deliberately ensuring she was the center of attention. But the doctor wants to run some additional tests. It's probably nothing, just a precaution. My mother, predictably, would immediately launch into a full-blown panic, demanding intricate details and effusively offering to accompany Stephanie to every single appointment. My father would grow quiet, his face suddenly lined with worry, his gaze fixed solely on Stephanie. The attention, unwavering and complete, would remain on Stephanie for the entire rest of the evening, any mention of wedding plans instantly forgotten, pushed aside by the more urgent, more dramatic narrative of her health crisis. During bridesmaid dress fittings, Stephanie orchestrated another dramatic scene, claiming she desperately needed a larger size, not due to weight gain, but because she was retaining water due to her medical condition. When the kind, practical seamstress suggested simple alterations to her current dress, Stephanie became tearful, her voice a loud whisper designed for maximum audience impact. "You don't understand," she whispered loudly enough for everyone in the bustling boutique to hear. "There might be a reason I need extra room in a few months, if you know what I mean." The other bridesmaids, captivated by her performance, immediately swarmed her with excited questions and effusive congratulations, despite Stephanie's theatrical insistence that it was far too early to say anything definite. I watched this calculated performance with a growing sense of cold suspicion, noting how her eyes constantly darted, nervously gauging my reaction, my growing unease. My doubts continued to multiply, growing heavier, more insistent, but a deep-seated, deeply ingrained sense of family loyalty, however misguided, kept me from voicing them, from tearing down the facade. Then, the final, undeniable piece of the puzzle fell into place. I found Stephanie's diary while helping my parents clean their dusty, cluttered attic. I knew, with a gut-wrenching certainty, that I shouldn't read it, that it was a profound invasion of her privacy. But when I saw Mark and my name repeatedly mentioned, scrawled in her familiar hand, my curiosity, mixed with a chilling dread, overrode every shred of my ethical compass. The entries confirmed my very worst, most terrifying fears, laid bare in excruciating detail. Scarlett always gets everything. One entry seethed, venomous and raw. The perfect grades, the perfect job, the perfect fiancé. Mom and Dad pretend to be proud of me, too, but I see how they look at her, how they truly feel. Now she's having this big, lavish wedding while I'm still single, still struggling. It's not fair, but I have a plan that will make everyone forget about Scarlett's perfect day. By the time I'm done, all anyone will remember about this wedding is me. Another entry meticulously detailed her research into creating fake medical documents, her chilling plan to announce a fake pregnancy, and then, with cruel timing, fake dramatic complications during the wedding festivities, specifically designed to steal the spotlight, to hijack my happiness. She'd even practiced her concerned but brave face in the mirror, rehearsing her performance. I should have confronted her immediately, shattered the illusion then and there, but a small, desperate part of me simply couldn't believe my own sister, my own flesh and blood, would go to such monstrous lengths. I needed more evidence, irrefutable proof, to truly believe it myself. And unfortunately, tragically, my sister was about to provide it. As the wedding week finally arrived, and family gathered from across the country, a parade of well-meaning but oblivious relatives, Stephanie's mysterious health concerns intensified, her performances becoming more frequent, more dramatic. She scheduled her grand, dramatic revelation for the rehearsal dinner, where she knew, with chilling precision, she would have the largest, most captive audience possible. I watched her meticulous preparations, her carefully orchestrated charade, with a growing sense of cold dread and an equally powerful, steely determination. She had no idea, not the slightest inkling, that I knew her entire, twisted plan. Nor did she realize the immense, unseen power I actually held over her entire life, over her very existence. The stage was set, not for a joyful celebration, but for a confrontation that would irrevocably change our family forever, stripping away years of artifice and lies. The night of the rehearsal dinner, I slipped a slender, innocuous-looking folder of financial documents, irrefutable evidence of my years of clandestine support, into my purse. If Stephanie wanted to play with fire, if she wanted to burn my life to the ground, she was about to learn, with devastating clarity, that I controlled the whole damn forest. Our rehearsal dinner was held at the Belmont, an exclusive, upscale restaurant renowned for its discreet luxury, with a private dining room offering a breathtaking, panoramic view of the glittering city skyline. Mark and I had chosen it for its intimate, sophisticated atmosphere and its exceptional, Michelin-starred cuisine. Crystal chandeliers cast a warm, inviting glow over the long, polished mahogany table, where 40 of our closest friends and family members gathered, their faces alight with anticipation. The room hummed with animated conversation and joyous laughter as everyone enjoyed cocktails before the meal. I should have been savoring these precious moments, soaking in the love and excitement of my impending marriage, but my attention, my entire focus, was unshakably fixed on Stephanie, who was acting increasingly, conspicuously strange. She kept checking her phone, her gaze darting nervously. She stepped away repeatedly from mysterious, hushed calls, whispering conspiratorially with one of her friends, who, tellingly, wasn't even part of the wedding party. She'd chosen to wear a form-fitting, designer dress that strategically emphasized her midsection, which she kept rubbing absently, ensuring every single guest noticed her condition. "Are you feeling okay, Stephanie?" my mother asked, her voice carrying loudly enough for nearby guests to hear, laced with an almost performative concern. "You seem uncomfortable, sweetheart." "I'm fine, Mom," Stephanie replied with a brave, trembling smile that didn't quite reach her cold, calculating eyes. "Just a little tired. The doctor said I need to rest more in my condition." My mother's eyes widened theatrically, and she immediately launched into a hushed but animated conversation with Stephanie, her voice filled with exaggerated worry. I watched them from across the room, noting with grim fascination how Stephanie strategically positioned herself so that most guests could easily observe their apparently private discussion, ensuring maximum impact. Mark approached, a comforting presence, handing me a fresh glass of champagne. "Everything okay? You've barely smiled all evening." "Just wetting nerves," I lied, the words tasting like ash in my mouth, not wanting to ruin his night with my chilling suspicions, with the storm I knew was coming. "I'm going to check on the seating arrangements." Instead, I watched Stephanie, my gaze unwavering, until she finally put down her phone to visit the restroom. The moment she disappeared down the hallway, I made my move, my heart a frantic drum against my ribs. Her designer purse sat unattended at her place setting, her phone on top, still unlocked, a beacon of damning evidence. I knew I had, perhaps, 2 agonizing minutes before she returned. My heart pounded against my ribs, a frantic bird trapped in a cage, as I quickly picked up the phone, feeling like a thief despite being on a desperate quest for the truth. A text conversation with someone named Jess was open on the screen, glaringly apparent. Jess Stephanie, the fake report is perfect. Doctor's office letterhead and everything. Stephanie OMG, are you really going through with this? Jess hell yes. The announcement tonight. Then complications during the ceremony. All eyes on me. Not Miss Perfect. Jess what if someone calls the doctor to check? Stephanie no one would dare. Besides, I'll have a miscarriage after the honeymoon. Perfect timing to ruin their return. Jess your sister will hate you forever. Stephanie she'll get over it. Besides, she has everything else. I deserve one day where people care about me. I quickly scrolled through more messages, my vision blurring with rage and heartbreak, finding photos of the meticulously forged pregnancy documents and intricate details of her plan to fake crying spells to orchestrate a dramatic collapse during our wedding vows, stealing every shred of joy from my most sacred moment. My hands shook violently with a potent combination of rage, profound betrayal, and an aching, bottomless heartbreak. I quickly, meticulously, took photos of the entire incriminating conversation with my own phone, then returned Stephanie's phone exactly as I had found it, her purse undisturbed. When Stephanie returned, her eyes, ever watchful, met mine across the elegant room. I maintained a neutral, impassive expression, but something in my gaze, perhaps a flicker of the storm brewing within me, must have alarmed her, because she quickly looked away, busying herself with a sudden, animated conversation with one of the groomsmen. Dinner was served, an exquisite meal I barely tasted, and as coffee and dessert arrived, signaling the evening's close, my father stood to make a heartfelt toast, his voice thick with emotion. Just as he raised his glass, preparing to speak, Stephanie dramatically placed her hand on her stomach and gasped, a piercing, theatrical sound. The timing was impeccably cruel, interrupting the father of the bride moments before he could utter a single word of praise for his daughter on her special weekend. "I'm so sorry," she said, her voice carrying perfectly across the now silent room, laced with feigned regret. "I wasn't going to say anything this weekend because I didn't want to take attention away from Scarlett and Mark, but..." She paused for agonizing effect, tears welling theatrically in her eyes. "I've been having some complications with my pregnancy. The doctor said I need to take it easy, but I wanted to be here for my sister." The room erupted in a wave of concerned murmurs, a ripple of hushed sympathy for Stephanie. My mother rushed to Stephanie's side, her face a mask of distraught worry, while my father stood frozen, his hands still raised, toast forgotten, his face a picture of confusion. Mark looked at me in utter bewilderment, his eyes clearly asking if I'd known about the supposed pregnancy, if I had kept this from him. I felt a strange, chilling calm descend over me, a quiet, deadly resolve, as I slowly, deliberately, stood up, wine glass still in hand. The room, sensing a shift in the air, gradually quieted as people noticed me preparing to speak, all eyes now fixed on me. "Thank you for your concern for my sister," I said, my voice steady, clear, cutting through the lingering murmurs. "But I think we should clarify something. Stephanie, I turned my gaze directly to her, my eyes cold and unwavering. Would you like to tell everyone the truth about your pregnancy, or should I? Stephanie's face paled, the color draining from her cheeks, but she recovered with startling speed, her eyes hardening with defiance. Scarlett, I know you're upset about the timing, but this isn't about you for once. I'm actually sick. I smiled tightly, a thin, brittle line. You're right. It isn't about me. It's about you lying to everyone in this room. There is no pregnancy, is there, Stephanie? Gasps, louder and more shocked than before, echoed around the elegant table. Stephanie's expression hardened further, her eyes flashing with a desperate, cornered rage. How dare you? Why would I lie about something like this? To ruin my wedding, according to your text messages with Jess, I said, my voice cutting through her pretense. I held up my phone, the glaring screenshots of her texts displayed for all to see. The fake doctor's report was a nice touch, Stephanie. Very convincing letterhead. Stephanie's face contorted with a mixture of rage and burgeoning fear, but then, almost instantaneously, shifted to a familiar, smug sneer. You went through my phone? That's a new low, Scarlett. Always the perfect sister, right? Well, at least I don't pretend to be something I'm not. Everyone thinks you're so successful, so amazing, but you're just a pathetic control freak who can't stand when someone else gets attention. It was the moment I had been waiting for, the precise trigger for my final, devastating move. I reached into my purse and pulled out the folder I'd meticulously prepared, the heavy weight of the documents a physical manifestation of years of hidden truth. Speaking of control, I said quietly, my voice dropping, yet cutting through the stunned silence. Did you ever truly wonder how you could afford that luxury apartment on part-time retail wages, Stephanie? Or how our parents magically recovered from near bankruptcy 5 years ago, suddenly debt-free? Or where your generous scholarship came from after you routinely failed half your classes? Stephanie's smug expression finally faltered, her eyes wide with a dawning horror. My mother made a small, choked noise of distress, burying her face in her hands. Scarlett, this isn't the time, my father began, his voice laced with desperate plea, but I cut him off, my gaze unwavering, my resolve absolute. Actually, Dad, this is exactly the time. 4 years, I've been secretly funding this entire family. The mortgage on your house, Dad, the business recovery grant, Mom's medical bills, Stephanie's apartment, her car payments, her escalating credit card debt, all of it. And that scholarship that mysteriously never required any academic performance from Stephanie, that was me too. Every single penny. I opened the folder, deliberately, methodically, and placed several stacks of irrefutable documents on the table, fanning them out for all to see. It's all here. Bank transfers, shell companies, trust arrangements. I own the company that technically owns your house, Dad. I'm the anonymous donor behind Stephanie's scholarship fund. I've paid off her credit card 7 times in the last 3 years, bailing her out again and again. The room had gone completely, shockingly silent. Not a single breath was drawn. Mark was staring at me in utter disbelief, profound shock etched on his handsome face. This, I realized with a pang, was news to him as well. My mother had collapsed back into her chair, one hand clamped over her mouth, her eyes wide with unshed tears. My father stood rigidly, his face ashen, stripped of all color, his entire posture radiating betrayal and confusion. Stephanie's expression shifted, agonizingly slowly, from confusion to pure, unadulterated horror as she processed the full, devastating weight of what I was saying, the absolute extent of my control. You're lying, she whispered, the words barely audible, but her voice lacked any shred of conviction, any real force. The pregnancy report isn't the only fake document in this family, Stephanie, I stated, my voice devoid of emotion. The difference is mine were created to help you, to protect you, not to hurt you, not to destroy an innocent celebration. I turned to address our stunned, silent guests, my voice softer now, but still carrying through the oppressive quiet. I sincerely apologize for this unexpected family drama. Please, everyone, enjoy the rest of your evening. Mark and I look forward to celebrating with you at our wedding tomorrow, assuming, of course, we still have one after all these revelations. As I walked out of the dining room, leaving a vortex of stunned silence and shattered illusions in my wake, I heard Stephanie begin to sob. Real tears this time. Deep, raw, gut-wrenching sobs, not the performative, perfectly picturesque ones she perfected over the years. A small, almost imperceptible part of me felt terrible, a faint echo of guilt for exposing her so brutally, so publicly. But a much larger, more dominant part felt an overwhelming, liberating relief. The intricate web of lies I'd been meticulously maintaining for years had, ironically, become its own insidious trap, binding us all. And maybe, just maybe, this painful, public truth was our only, desperate way forward. After I left the rehearsal dinner, walking out into the cool night air, leaving behind the shattered fragments of my meticulously planned life, I drove aimlessly for nearly an hour, the city lights blurring through my tear-filled eyes, my mind a tempest of rage, grief, and a strange, cold clarity. I ignored the relentless buzzing of my phone, a cacophony of worried calls and frantic texts. Mark finally reached me with a text that simply read, "I'm at your place whenever you're ready to talk. No pressure. I love you." His simple, unwavering message, devoid of judgment or demand, broke through my emotional numbness, a lifeline in the storm. I drove home to find him waiting patiently on the porch swing, the glow of the street lamp illuminating his concerned face, 2 glasses of wine already poured and waiting beside him. When I sat down beside him, collapsing into his embrace, he didn't pepper me with questions, didn't offer immediate judgment. He just put his arm around me, held me close, and waited, a silent, comforting presence. "I should have told you," I finally choked out, my voice thick with unshed tears. "About the money, about all of it. About how deep the deception went." "Yes, you should have," he agreed quietly, his voice gentle but firm. "But I understand why you didn't, Scarlett. I truly do. I've watched how your family treats you for 2 years, how they undervalue you, how they take you for granted. You're the responsible one, the fixer, the achiever who never gets the same praise or attention as your sister. You found a way to help them, to shield them from their own failures, without becoming their ATM, without irrevocably changing how they saw you, without having to suffer the sting of their praise for Stephanie's gifts. It wasn't honest, no, but it was kind in a complicated, deeply painful way. His profound understanding, his quiet empathy, brought fresh, wrenching tears to my eyes, a deluge of emotion I had suppressed for so long. "What happens now?" I whispered, utterly lost, my future suddenly a vast, terrifying blank. "That depends," he said, gently turning my face to meet his gaze. "Do you still want to marry me tomorrow? Despite everything? Despite the chaos? Despite the pain?" I laughed, a broken, watery sound. "That's the only thing I'm still sure about, Mark. That's the only certainty left." Mark smiled, a warm, reassuring light in the darkness, and squeezed my hand. "Then we'll figure out the rest together, Scarlett. We always will." My brief moment of hard-won peace was abruptly interrupted by my phone ringing again. My father. For the 12th time that night, I finally answered, my voice still shaky. "Scarlett, we need to talk," he said, his voice grave, utterly devoid of its usual bluster. "Everyone's at the house, including Stephanie. It's a disaster." The emergency family meeting, convened in my parents' living room, the very house I'd secretly been paying for, maintaining its facade of normalcy, felt suffocating, the air thick with unspoken accusations and raw emotion. My mother sat rigid on the sofa, her eyes swollen and red from incessant crying, her posture radiating defeat. My father paced restlessly by the fireplace, a lion stripped of his roar, his usual pride replaced by a bewildered vulnerability. Stephanie was curled tightly in an armchair, looking smaller, more fragile, more utterly broken than I'd seen her in years, her face blotchy and tear-streaked. "Explain everything," my father demanded the moment I walked in, his voice raw, hoarse with unspoken pain. "From the very beginning. Every detail." So I did. I told them, with an almost surgical precision, about the company acquisition, about the immense money I'd made, about discovering their crushing financial troubles, and about my elaborate, decades-long plan to help them without changing our family dynamic, without exposing my wealth to Stephanie's avarice, without becoming the family's financial crutch. I meticulously explained the shell companies, the fake scholarship fund, the business grants, and all the countless times I'd secretly, invisibly, bailed out Stephanie from her self-made financial disasters. "Why didn't you just tell us?" my mother asked, her voice breaking, thick with anguish. "Why all the deception, Scarlett? Why the elaborate lies? Would you have accepted my help openly?" I countered, my voice rising, the dam of years of resentment finally breaking. "Would it have fundamentally changed how you treat me, compared to Stephanie? Or would I have just become the family bank, an endless source of funds, while still hearing about how special, how precious, how talented she is, while my own achievements were always overshadowed?" My father flinched, a sharp, involuntary movement, at my words, his face contorting in pain. "We don't favor, Scarlett. We never, please," I interrupted, cutting him off, my voice raw with years of suppressed anger. "My entire childhood I heard, 'Why can't you be more like Stephanie?' when it came to being sociable, to being charming. But never once, not a single time, did I ever hear, 'Why can't Stephanie be more like Scarlett?' when it came to responsibility or achievement. I paid for her luxury apartment while she dropped out of classes, and you still praised her for her fierce independence, while asking me why I worked so much, why I wasn't married yet, why I wasn't more available." An uncomfortable, suffocating silence filled the room, thick with the weight of unacknowledged truths. Finally, Stephanie spoke, her voice quiet, almost a whisper, but steadier than I expected. "I didn't know," she said, her gaze fixed on the floor, her words barely audible. "About the money. Any of it. I truly didn't." Her voice cracked slightly. "That was the point," I said, my voice softer now, the initial rage subsiding into a weary resignation. "But why? she asked, her eyes finally lifting to meet mine, filled with a raw, agonizing confusion. Why help me, when I've been so awful to you? So utterly cruel? Because you're my sister Stephanie, I said simply, the truth a stark, painful thing. And because I thought if I could remove the financial stresses, if I could just make things easier, maybe our family could just be normal. Maybe we could just be. Stephanie slowly unfolded herself from the armchair, moving to the center of the room, her posture still fragile, but with a new, nascent strength. I need to tell you all something, she said, her voice wavering slightly, but holding firm. Scarlett's right about the pregnancy. I faked it. I was going to pretend to have complications during the ceremony tomorrow. She swallowed hard, her gaze sweeping over our stunned parents, then back to me. But that's not all. I also contacted Mark's ex-girlfriend and invited her to object during the ceremony. And I've been trying to get Mark's attention since the day you two got engaged. Since the day I met him. My mother gasped, a sharp, choke sound. Stephanie, how could you? Because I'm jealous, okay? Stephanie's voice rose, a raw, anguished cry that echoed in the silent room. I've always been jealous of Scarlett. Everyone thinks I was the favorite, the golden child, but being the favorite just meant no one ever expected anything from me. Do you know what it's like living in the shadow of someone like her? Perfect grades, perfect career, perfect fiancé. And I'm a college dropout working retail at 26, completely lost. And now I find out I couldn't even manage that without my big sister secretly funding every single thing. Her raw, unvarnished honesty stunned me. For the first time in years, perhaps ever, I saw my sister not as my rival, not as the pampered family favorite, but as someone who'd been profoundly damaged by the very same dysfunctional family dynamic that had hurt me, just in a different, equally destructive way. My father sank into a nearby chair, his shoulders slumping, suddenly looking every one of his 63 years, ancient and defeated. We failed you both, he said quietly, his voice hoarse with pain, his eyes filled with self-reproach. Scarlett, we placed too much responsibility on you, took your strength for granted, never truly saw your needs. And Stephanie, we didn't give you the structure, the expectations, the challenges you needed to thrive, to grow, to become a strong, independent woman. My mother, still weeping, wiped her eyes, her voice laced with the same anxiety I'd feared. What happens now, Scarlett? Will you keep supporting us? The naked anxiety in her question, her immediate focus on the money, confirmed what I'd always feared. That financial support was the only real value I had to them, the only thing that truly mattered. Before I could answer, Mark spoke from the doorway, where he'd been quietly, patiently observing the entire agonizing scene, a silent anchor in the storm. I think that's the wrong question, Mrs. Preston, he said gently, his voice calm and firm. Maybe the first question should be how to rebuild trust in this family, not who's paying for what, not where the next dollar comes from. I'd never loved him more than in that precise, profound moment. The wedding is postponed, I announced, my voice steady, making the words real. Mark and I will decide later if and when we reschedule. As for financial support, I took a deep, fortifying breath, bracing myself for the inevitable outcry. It stops today. All of it. Effective immediately. But the mortgage, my father began, his voice rising in panic. You have 2 months of payments left in the account. That's enough time to figure out your next steps, to find a sustainable solution. Stephanie, your lease is paid through the end of the month. That's it. You can't just cut us off, Scarlett, my mother protested, her voice shrill with disbelief. I can, I said, my voice firm, unwavering. And I am. Not to punish you, but because this arrangement isn't healthy for any of us. I've enabled dependencies, created a false reality that has stunted our growth as individuals and as a family. It has to end. My pronouncement was met with stunned, disbelieving silence. Stephanie was the first to recover, to absorb the full weight of my words. She's right, she said, surprising everyone, her voice quiet but resolute. This isn't normal or healthy. I need to stand on my own 2 feet for once. Truly. In the days and weeks that followed, our extended family fractured, taking sides in the escalating conflict. Some cousins, long beneficiaries of my parents' faux generosity, thought I was cruel for abruptly cutting off support, labeling me heartless. Others, observing from a distance, praised me for finally establishing much-needed boundaries, for refusing to be exploited further. I started seeing a therapist, a compassionate, insightful woman who helped me begin to process my complicated, deeply entangled feelings about my family and, crucially, my own unwitting role in creating and perpetuating the unhealthy dynamic. Mark, my rock, stood by me through it all, never judging, always supportive, always a steady, grounding presence. One quiet night, as we discussed whether to reschedule our wedding or simply elope to some remote corner of the world, he offered an insight that would fundamentally change my perspective, a profound truth that resonated deep within my soul. You know what's interesting about your family, he said, his voice thoughtful, gentle. You've all been living according to a very specific script about who you are, the responsible one, the favorite, the struggling but proud parents. But none of you truly chose those roles. You inherited them, were assigned them, and never once questioned them, never dared to step outside the lines. You just played them out endlessly. So what do we do? I asked, my voice barely a whisper, a flicker of hope stirring within me. Rewrite the script, he said simply, his eyes filled with certainty. All of you. Start fresh. With that profound thought echoing in my mind, I slowly, tentatively, approached the monumental task of rebuilding my family relationships, not as the burdened, resentful big sister, not as the secret benefactor, but simply as Scarlett, a woman figuring it out, one challenging, imperfect day at a time. 1 month after the dramatic rehearsal dinner revelation, the full, unvarnished impact of the financial reckoning hit my family like a relentless tidal wave. Stephanie received an eviction notice when she couldn't make her rent payment, the illusion of her luxury lifestyle dissolving overnight. Her car, the one I'd been secretly making payments on for years, was at imminent risk of repossession, its shiny facade cracking. My parents, who had been living in a grand, unaffordable house and maintaining a lifestyle far beyond their actual means, were confronted with the harsh, undeniable reality of their true financial situation. I maintained my distance, a difficult but necessary boundary, but stayed informed through Mark, who had unexpectedly, and with quiet grace, become the family mediator, a neutral, calming presence. He reported that my parents were arguing constantly, fiercely, about money, their carefully constructed facade of financial stability shattered. My mother, still reeling from the shock, wanted to ask me for help, her dependency still ingrained, while my father, humble but determined, insisted they needed to solve their own problems for once, to stand on their own. Your dad's looking at retirement account options, at ways to downsize and become self-sufficient, Mark told me gently after having coffee with my father. And your mom is researching how to sell the house themselves to avoid costly realtor fees, determined to take control. And Stephanie? I asked, trying to sound casual, trying to hide the tremor in my voice. She's applied for 7 jobs in the past week. Actual full-time positions. Scarlett, not just retail, not just for show. I felt a complex, conflicting mix of emotions, profound guilt for their struggles, a flicker of pride that they were finally taking action, and a lingering, deep-seated hurt from years of family dynamics that had irrevocably led to this painful, necessary breaking point. After 6 agonizing weeks of complete separation, 6 weeks of silence broken only by Mark's updates, I finally agreed to meet my parents for lunch at a modest diner, their choice, which in itself signaled a profound, hopeful change. My mother had lost weight, the lines of stress still etched on her face, and my father's hair seemed to have grayed considerably, but they both greeted me with a genuine warmth, a quiet humility, rather than the tense formality or defensive anger I'd half expected. We've been working with a financial advisor, my father said, his voice subdued but earnest, after we ordered our simple meals. Creating a realistic budget based on our actual income now, not on your generous but hidden supplements. We should have done this years ago, my mother added, her voice filled with regret. We're selling the house. Found a nice, smaller condo that's actually within our means, a place we can truly afford. I nodded, surprised and genuinely impressed by their pragmatic, accountable approach. That sounds sensible, I said. My father leaned forward, his gaze direct and filled with emotion. We owe you an apology, our deepest apologies, not just for taking your money without knowing, but for all the years before that. We placed far too much responsibility on you, Scarlett, and took your strength, your efforts, for granted. And Stephanie, we didn't give her the structure and the clear expectations she desperately needed to thrive, to grow into her own person. We see that now. We truly do. We've started family therapy, my mother added, her eyes still red, but now clear. All 3 of us. We'd like you to join us when you're ready if you're willing. Their humility, their unexpected self-awareness, caught me completely off guard. I'd expected defensiveness, or manipulation, or a desperate plea for more money, not genuine accountability, not a profound willingness to change. After lunch, Mark, ever the insightful peacemaker, suggested a compromise that surprised even me. What if you set up a proper, transparent financial arrangement, Scarlett? He offered, his voice thoughtful. Not secretly funding everything, not enabling dependency, but maybe helping with specific, clearly defined things, with clear boundaries. Like what? I asked, intrigued. Like offering to help your parents with a down payment on their new condo as a straightforward, transparent gift, not a secret payment. Or helping Stephanie with tuition if she goes back to school, but with clear academic requirements, with demonstrable commitment. The idea had genuine merit. It would allow me to provide support to my family, to help them during this difficult transition, without enabling dependency, without fostering resentment, without repeating the mistakes of the past. After careful consideration, I called a family meeting at Mark's house, neutral territory, to discuss the path forward, a new script for our family. Stephanie arrived first, looking noticeably different. Gone were the designer clothes and the perfectly styled, expensive hair. She wore simple jeans and a practical blouse, her hair pulled back in a no-nonsense ponytail, her face scrubbed clean of makeup. "I got a job," she announced without preamble, a small, proud smile touching her lips. "At Westfield Architecture. Mark's friend Carlos hired me as an office manager." "That's great, Stephanie," I said, genuinely pleased, my heart lifting with a surge of unexpected pride. "How is it going?" "Hard," she admitted, a wry grimace on her face. "I've never had to be somewhere at 8 a.m. every day, actually accountable for things, actually responsible. But I kind of like it. Having structure, I mean." My parents arrived next, bringing a neat folder of financial documents, their faces radiating a quiet dignity. "We've worked out a budget, Scarlett," my father explained, his voice firm, "based solely on our income and the equity we'll get from downsizing. And we'd like your input," my mother added, her gaze steady. "Not your money. Just your honest opinion." I reviewed their plans, meticulously detailed and surprisingly thorough, genuinely impressed by their diligence. The condo they'd found was modest but nice, and their new budget accounted for all necessities while eliminating the luxuries they'd grown accustomed to, the phantom expenses I had covered. "This looks solid," I said, returning the folder. "I'd like to make a proposal, though." I outlined a limited support plan, similar to Mark's suggestion, a one-time gift to help with the condo down payment, contingent on them strictly adhering to their budget, tuition assistance for Stephanie if she returned to school, contingent on maintaining an AIB average, and a small emergency fund for true family crises, administered by an independent, unbiased trustee, to prevent any further manipulation. "This isn't an ATM arrangement," I clarified, my voice firm. "These are specific, defined supports with clear boundaries and expectations, a genuine safety net, not an open wallet." To my profound surprise, my father shook his head. "We appreciate the offer, Scarlett, truly, but we need to do this ourselves for now. Maybe we can revisit it in a year, when we've proven to ourselves, as much as to you, that we can be financially responsible, that we've truly changed." Their refusal of my carefully considered help was perhaps the strongest, most undeniable evidence that real, fundamental change was finally occurring within my family. As we continued talking, another, even more shocking revelation emerged, a truth that laid bare the full, agonizing depth of our family's dysfunction. Stephanie, tears streaming down her face, confessed that she had been stealing from our parents for years, taking cash from their wallets, pilfering small sums from their failing business, unknowingly contributing to their escalating financial problems. "I convinced myself they owed it to me," she admitted, not meeting anyone's eyes, her voice choked with shame. "I never thought of it as stealing. I felt entitled." The admission stunned me, leaving me breathless. All this time, I'd been secretly supporting everyone, bearing the hidden weight of their financial burdens, and Stephanie had been secretly undermining that support, actively contributing to their downfall. The dysfunction, I realized, ran far deeper than I had ever dared to imagine. After the meeting, Stephanie asked to speak with me privately, a new, tentative vulnerability in her eyes. We walked to a nearby park, sitting on a bench overlooking a small, serene pond, the setting sun casting long shadows. "I hit rock bottom last week," she said, her gaze fixed on the ducks gliding across the water, her voice barely a whisper. "Got down to my last $20. No credit, no savings, nothing. I went to a pawn shop, Scarlett, to sell Mom's bracelet that I'd borrowed, convinced it was my only option." "Did you sell it?" I asked, my voice soft, laced with a new kind of understanding. She shook her head, tears welling in her eyes. "I couldn't. I couldn't go through with it." That's when I realized how far I'd fallen. Ready to sell a stolen family heirloom for cash, for what? A quick fix. I walked out and applied for jobs all day instead. Real jobs. Her raw, unvarnished vulnerability cracked something open deep inside me. For the first time in years, maybe ever, we were having an honest, unvarnished conversation, stripped of pretense, devoid of competition, just two sisters, truly seeing each other. "I never wanted to hurt you, Scarlett," she continued, her voice trembling. "Not really. I just wanted what you had. Not the money, not the success, but the confidence, the certainty. You always knew who you were, what you wanted, where you were going. I felt so lost." I laughed softly, a bittersweet sound. "That's the biggest myth about me, Stephanie. I've been terrified, uncertain, filled with doubt plenty of times. I just didn't show it. I couldn't." "Why not?" she asked, genuinely curious. "Because I was the responsible one, the achiever. That was my assigned role, my identity. I had to be perfect, or I was nothing. And I was the screw-up," Stephanie said quietly, the words heavy with self-reproach. "The eternal child who couldn't be trusted with responsibility, who was just meant to be indulged." We sat in comfortable silence, contemplating how we'd both been constrained, confined, even damaged by these rigid, family-assigned identities. I found your journal, I admitted, breaking the silence, the confession hanging in the air. That's how I knew about the fake pregnancy plan. Instead of anger, Stephanie looked profoundly relieved. I'm glad you did, Scarlett. Honestly, I don't think I would have had the courage to stop myself. I was on a collision course. As sunset painted the sky in vibrant oranges and soft, hopeful pinks, Stephanie slowly reached over and took my hand, a tentative, fragile connection. I'm so sorry, Scarlett, for everything. Truly, I want to be better. Not like you. I'll never be like you, but a better version of me. For me. I squeezed her hand gently. I'd like to know that version of Stephanie. Walking back, hand in hand, I realized Mark was right. We were rewriting the script, creating new possibilities for who we could be as individuals and as a family. The process would be messy, imperfect, painful even, but for the first time in years, it felt profoundly authentic. 6 months after the dramatic, life-altering rehearsal dinner revelation, I stood in the small, sun-drenched dressing room of a beautiful beachside venue, adjusting the delicate lace of my simple white dress. Mark and I had decided to move forward with a much smaller, far more intimate wedding, one that truly reflected who we had become. 40 guests instead of 200, a charming local restaurant reception overlooking the water instead of a lavish hotel ballroom, wildflowers from a local garden instead of elaborate, expensive arrangements. You look beautiful, my darling, my mother said from the doorway, her voice soft, her eyes filled with a genuine, unburdened love. Our relationship had been painstakingly transformed over the past months. Without the secret financial ties that had poisoned our bond, and with the consistent, patient help of family therapy, we'd slowly, tentatively, begun developing a more honest, more authentic connection. She was learning to see me as a complete person, with needs and vulnerabilities, rather than just the responsible one, the ever-capable daughter. And I, in turn, was learning to share my fears, my insecurities, my true self with her, something I had never dared to do before. Is Stephanie here? I asked, trying to sound casual, a flutter of nerves in my stomach. My mother nodded, a gentle smile on her face. She's helping arrange the chairs on the beach. She's nervous about seeing you, Scarlett. Very nervous. Stephanie was not in my wedding party this time. That level of trust, that depth of intimacy, would take much longer to rebuild, but I had invited her as a guest, a crucial first step toward healing, toward forgiveness. The changes in our family over those 6 months have been nothing short of remarkable, a testament to the power of truth and genuine effort. My parents had successfully sold their large, unaffordable house and moved into a comfortable, charming condo they could actually afford, a space that felt truly their own. My father, with a renewed sense of purpose, had taken a part-time consulting position to supplement his income, and my mother had bravely started a small online business selling handcrafted jewelry, pouring her creativity into something meaningful. They weren't wealthy, not by any stretch, but they were making ends meet, standing proudly on their own 2 feet, a true testament to their resilience. Honestly, Stephanie had surprised everyone, most of all herself, with her profound transformation. Still working diligently at Westfield Architecture, she'd received her first promotion, a tangible reward for her hard work, and was taking evening classes to complete her business degree, her focus unwavering. She lived in a modest apartment with a roommate, drove a reliable used car she'd purchased herself, and was slowly but steadily building her credit score through responsible financial habits. Our family therapy sessions had been challenging, often painful, but ultimately incredibly enlightening. We'd uncovered deeply ingrained patterns of behavior that stretched back generations, a toxic inheritance we had all unconsciously replicated. My father's parents had openly favored his younger brother, creating the template he unconsciously replicated with his own daughters. My mother's family had always valued appearance over substance, explaining her deep discomfort with financial transparency, her need to maintain a perfect facade. These insights, while painful, didn't excuse the dysfunction, but they helped us understand it, to address it from its root causes, to slowly, carefully untangle its knots. Mark and I, together, had established clear, firm boundaries about future family financial support. We created a small education fund for Stephanie with very specific conditions. She needed to maintain her grades, continue therapy, and demonstrate consistent financial responsibility. For my parents, we offered matching contributions to a retirement account, encouraging their independence while providing a dignified safety net, a true partnership. It's time, my love, my father said, appearing at the dressing room door, his eyes alight. He looked different, fundamentally changed, his posture more relaxed, his smile more genuine, less strained. Ready. I took his arm, feeling a new, profound connection, and we made our way down to the sun-kissed beach where chairs had been arranged in a graceful semicircle facing the sparkling ocean. Mark waited near the water's edge, handsome and beaming in his light gray suit, his eyes full of love. Our closest friends and family members turned to watch as my father walked me down the sandy aisle, his grip firm and reassuring. I spotted Stephanie in the second row, wearing a simple, elegant blue dress, her hair loose around her shoulders, framing a face that held a newfound serenity. Our eyes met briefly, and she gave me a small, sincere smile, not the performative grin she perfected over the years, but something real, something a little sad, but utterly authentic. The ceremony was brief and heartfelt. Mark and I exchanged vows we'd written ourselves, promising honesty, partnership, and a lifelong commitment to growth. As we sealed our marriage with a tender kiss, I felt a deep, profound sense of rightness, a quiet joy that had been utterly missing from our original, elaborate wedding plans. This ceremony, simple and true, reflected who we truly were, not who we thought we should be. At the reception, held at a local restaurant overlooking the shimmering water, Stephanie approached me hesitantly during the meal, a nervous energy surrounding her. "Congratulations, Scarlett," she said, keeping a respectful distance, her voice soft. "Everything was beautiful. Truly. Thank you for coming, Stephanie," I replied, a genuine warmth in my voice. "It means a lot. More than you know." An awkward, gentle silence stretched between us, a space still healing, until Stephanie took a deep breath. "I have something for you," she said, her voice a little shaky. "Not a wedding gift exactly, but, well, here." She handed me a crisp envelope. Inside was a meticulously researched, professionally presented business plan for a small graphic design company she wanted to launch after completing her degree. "I'm not asking for funding," she clarified quickly, her eyes earnest. "I just wanted your opinion, as someone who built something successful. Your honest take." I was genuinely touched by the gesture and by what it truly represented. Stephanie seeking my input as an equal, not out of manipulation or competition, but out of genuine respect, a desire to learn. "I'd be happy to review it, Stephanie," I said, a smile spreading across my face. "Maybe we could get coffee next week to discuss it?" Her face lit up with genuine pleasure, a pure, unburdened joy I hadn't seen in years. "I'd like that, Scarlett. Very much." Later, during the toasts, Stephanie surprised everyone by standing and nervously asking to speak. Mark squeezed my hand, his eyes full of pride and a quiet understanding, as she approached the microphone. "I'm not in the wedding party," she began, her voice trembling slightly but holding firm. "And there are good reasons for that. Many good reasons." She paused, collecting herself, taking a deep breath. "But I wanted to say something to my sister and Mark. Scarlett," she continued, her voice gaining strength, "you've always been my benchmark, the person I measure myself against, and always fell short. It made me resent you, deeply, instead of recognizing how much I could learn from you, how much you had to offer. What I've realized over these past months, through a lot of pain and a lot of therapy, is that your success didn't take anything away from me. Your light doesn't diminish mine. It can, in fact, help me find my own path, my own light." Tears pricked my eyes as she continued, her voice clear now, filled with a profound sincerity. "Mark, thank you for loving my sister so fiercely, and for your incredible kindness to our family, even when we truly didn't deserve it. And thank you both for giving me the chance to be here today, to witness the beginning of your beautiful life together, to be a part of something real." She raised her glass, her hand steady. "To Scarlett and Mark, may your honesty with each other, your unwavering partnership, create the foundation for a lifetime of boundless happiness." After the toasts, while Mark danced with my mother, a tender, healing moment, my father sat beside me at the table, his gaze fixed on the happy couple. "I have a confession," he said quietly, his voice low, filled with a new humility. "I knew about your financial support earlier than you think. Not the full extent of it. No, not all the shell companies, but I suspected. I had a feeling." "How?" I asked, surprised, my heart doing a little flutter. "The timing," he explained, a weary sigh escaping him. "It was too convenient. Our business troubles easing right when your company was acquired, right when you suddenly had resources. But I didn't say anything because—" He looked away, embarrassed, shame coloring his cheeks, because it was easier not to. I let my pride, my foolish, misguided pride, and my shame keep me from having an honest, open conversation with my own daughter. I chose the easy path, the dishonest path. "We all made mistakes, Dad," I said gently, placing my hand over his, a gesture of forgiveness, of understanding. He nodded, his eyes meeting mine, filled with a new clarity. "But we're finding our way now, aren't we? As a family." "Yes," I agreed, a soft smile on my face. "I think we are. We finally are." Our honeymoon was simple, restorative. A week at a quiet, secluded resort in the Caribbean, where Mark and I swam in the turquoise waters, read books together on the beach, and talked for hours about our future, about building our life together, about our hopes and dreams. We discussed having children someday, and how we would consciously approach parenting differently than our own families had. "We'll make different mistakes, Scarlett," Mark pointed out pragmatically, ever the realist, pulling me closer. "No parent is perfect." "True," I agreed, leaning into his warmth. "But we'll be honest about them. No family secrets, no assigned roles that constrain and hurt, no financial deceptions, even well-intentioned ones. Only truth." On our last evening, watching the fiery sunset from our balcony, its colors bleeding across the sky, I reflected on the extraordinary, tumultuous journey of the past year. The fake pregnancy report that had been so maliciously meant to ruin my wedding had, ironically, ultimately saved our family by forcing us all to confront brutal truths we'd been diligently avoiding, pushing under the rug for decades. Stephanie's deeply rooted jealousy and my secret, pervasive financial control had been not the cause, but merely symptoms of a deeper, insidious dysfunction that had finally, dramatically, been brought to light, exposed to the healing power of truth. When we returned home, refreshed and ready for our new life, I followed through on my promise to review Stephanie's business plan. We met at a bustling coffee shop, and I was genuinely impressed by the depth of thought, the meticulous research she put into her concept. "This is really good, Stephanie," I told her, my voice sincere. "Honestly, you've identified a solid niche, and your financial projections are conservative but incredibly promising. This is smart." "Really?" Her face lit up with pride, a genuine, radiant glow. "I've been researching business programs. I want to apply for my MBA after I finish my bachelor's degree. I want to build something real." "I think you'd be excellent at it," I said, meaning every word, a deep sense of pride swelling in my chest. "Have you thought about applying for scholarships?" "Actually, yes," she said, a confident, hopeful smile on her face. "I've already submitted applications for 3 merit-based programs. Real ones this time, Scarlett. Real ones." As we continued discussing her plans, the late afternoon sun streaming through the window, I realized we were having our first true conversation as adults. Not as the responsible sister and the favorite, not as the achiever and the screw-up, but as 2 women finding their way in the world, connected by blood and increasingly by choice. 6 months later, Stephanie was accepted into a competitive business program with a partial scholarship, a testament to her renewed dedication. My parents had settled comfortably into their new, more modest lifestyle, finding joy and peace in their self-sufficiency. Mark and I had bought a new house, a home filled with light and love, with a spacious guest room that had already hosted each family member for happy, unburdened visits. The journey wasn't perfect, not by any means. We still had disagreements, still occasionally stumbled, falling back into old, ingrained patterns of behavior. But the foundation had irrevocably shifted from secrets and festering resentment to honesty and genuine, hard-won growth. The sister who had once faked a pregnancy to ruin my wedding was now someone I spoke with weekly, sharing advice, sharing laughter, sharing a genuine, evolving connection. The parents who had once unknowingly accepted my financial support, their pride masking their dependency, now stood proudly on their own feet, with appropriate boundaries and transparent, honest communication. As for me, I was learning that being the fixer, the responsible one, wasn't my only identity, not my only value. I could be vulnerable, I could ask for help, I could make mistakes, and still be loved, still be valued. The control I'd maintained through secret financial support had been an illusion, a gilded cage that ultimately hurt everyone, including myself. Real control, I discovered, came from honesty about who we are, what we truly need, and how we show up, authentically, for each other. And sometimes, the greatest gift we can give our family isn't money or security, but the truth, however uncomfortable, however painful it might be. Have you ever experienced a family betrayal so profound that it ended up transforming your relationships, ultimately for the better? My sister's desperate attempt to ruin my wedding, to steal my joy, actually saved our family by forcing us to confront brutal, long-buried truths we'd all been diligently avoiding. If this story resonated with you, if it stirred something deep within your own experiences, please hit that like button and subscribe to hear more deeply personal stories of family drama, betrayal, and eventual resolution like mine. Share this video with someone who might be struggling with complicated family dynamics of their own. Sometimes, just knowing we're not alone in these tangled, complex relationships can be incredibly healing, a beacon of hope in the darkness. Drop a comment below about your own family karma moments, about the unexpected turns your own family stories have taken. I'd love to hear your thoughts, your own experiences.